Electric cars are better than gas cars in every single way except for one, which is charging. Charging at home and charging on the road has been a challenge for a lot of us, the current EV drivers, and has prevented a lot of you from buying your very first electric cars. Well, it's are things going to change going in 2023? Well, I have just the right guest. As a matter of fact, I dare you to find a better electric car charging expert than the host of the State of Charge YouTube channel, Tom Moloughney, who will be here in just a second. And we will also, as always, take questions from you, my live audience. And we're going to start right now. Welcome to E4 Electric, where I reveal the truth behind the electric car headlines. If you like either electric cars or the truth, go ahead and click on that subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, first of all, if you're watching me live, go ahead and let me know where you're watching me from and what electric car you're driving right now or maybe dreaming of buying very soon. I appreciate that. But meanwhile, let's talk about it. First of all, electric cars are better than gas cars. Do I need to explain that? They are faster, the performance is better, they are more environmentally friendly, they're quieter, the tech is better, the self-driving technology is going into the electric cars, not the gas cars. They are safer because there's no engine, there's better crumbling zone, it's got apps. We only have an hour, so I'm going to stop right now. But there's one thing that electric cars, unfortunately, are lagging way behind gas cars, and that is charging. Now, gassing electric car is easy. Well, not cheap nowadays. I see it's $7 a gallon. I passed the gas station the other day. It's insane. But it is definitely easy, and of course, you get an added bonus of getting high from the gas fumes, which I'm not gonna lie, I have missed that just a little bit. But listen, it takes 3, 4, 5 minutes to gas your car. It takes, obviously hours at home, but with the fast charging networks, it still takes about 30, 45 minutes sometimes to charge a regular, normal electric car when you are going long distance. And unfortunately, that's still an issue. And let's talk about long distance first, because when I got my very first Tesla back in 2012, right, and I showed it to my friends, and I was like, oh guys, look at this, it's all electric, it's got a good range, it's got this big monitor and the app that comes along with it. Look at this marvel of technology that is 2012 Tesla Model S. And the first and only question they would ask me is like, yeah, but can you drive it to LA? And I'm like, when do you need to drive to LA? Like once a year? How is this the first and only question? But unfortunately, that still is one of the biggest questions when people ask when they're shopping for an electric car. Now, the needle has been moved, right? Because most of the electric cars you're buying now or on the road, they have more than 200 miles of range, and more now have over 300 miles of range. So you don't have to charge as often. For example, I live here in Oakland, and I go to Santa Cruz once a week, and that's a long drive, but I make it all the way there and still stop by a few friends' houses and make it back on the same charge. So, and my car doesn't have the best range out there. As a matter of fact, it has half of the best range out there. And of course, there are fast charging networks like the biggest public one here, Electrify America. As a matter of fact, I'm just about to use them a lot because I will be traveling. I'm leaving California at the end of this month, and I'll be traveling through the United States. And if you guys still want me to make a video about why I'm leaving California, which is not very political, let me know. I will make a video. It will have nothing to do with electric cars, though. So let me know. I'll be happy to explain. There's also EVgo that's been expanding, especially now that they have a partnership with General Motors. And of course, Tesla Superchargers, the largest infrastructure essentially for fast charging here in Europe and in China. But it looks like here in America, they will be open to all of us very soon because Tesla wants that sweet money from that infrastructure bill. And that infrastructure bill will fund a lot of, infrastructure. Even now, you can pretty much travel anywhere in America, which I might in the next several months. So any additions will only enhance what we already have, which is not bad. However, the biggest challenge that I've seen, and this is not very common yet, but I think it will be very soon unless it grows. And I've seen it in, like, last time I visited Tesla supercharger, there was a line, right? You have to wait in order to wait to get your charge. And this was in Vacaville, California, not exactly a very popular charging location, and it was like a Sunday afternoon. But and I've seen those, throughout the years, and it's a problem. But the other day I've seen one at Electrify America here in Oakland, California. That's another problem that definitely needs to be solved, and of course it's solvable by building more of these. However, the other problem that's contributing to this one is the fact that people who are supposed to charge at home, 99% of people should be charging at home overnight every day, are not. And that's why they coming over to Tesla superchargers, Electrify America, and taking up the spots because they need to charge to go, to work the next day, and taking it away from people who are traveling. So that's a problem. But when it comes to charging, 99% of you, and I know some of you will say, "Oh, but I go to Tahoe every weekend." Granted, but for most of the people, very much most of the time, they should charge at home because it is not only convenient, it is not only much cheaper, but it takes like 7 seconds. And I know you're saying, "Well, Alex, what do you mean? It takes hours and hours and hours." What do you care what's happening when you're asleep? The total amount of time that you need to put into getting your car fully charged overnight is about 7 seconds. 3 seconds to plug it in, 4 seconds to take it out and hang it back on the wall, and you're done. You're ready to go. So it is the most convenient. However, that's not what's happening. Now, if you own a house or if you're renting a house, most people like myself, when I lived in my house, I would put up a charging station or at least run a 240 outlet. And even if you're renting and there is a electric dryer outlet, you can use something like, NeoCharge. They're one of the sponsors. You can get it, plug it in. As you can see on both sides, you can charge either two cars or have your laundry done and charge your car. No problem. But where the challenge starts, and I don't know, Tom has a very different opinion on this, and of course, he will make sure to let you guys know once he is on. Um, when you're renting an apartment, that's a big problem. I've had this problem throughout, ever since I bought my very first electric car in 2012, and even this year when I was moving from Sacramento to Oakland, it was once again a challenge. It was very few apartment complexes have dedicated charging spots. That's what you need, a dedicated charging spot. You can't just rely on like one or two that just they have for common use, because you don't want to gamble on whether or not you'll be able to pick up your kids from school the next day, right? You need a dedicated charger. Now, the weird thing is, then I finally found one and we had 20 spots. I thought, oh my God, there will be 20 electric cars charging. No. Half of the spots are taken by gas cars, and the other half that's taken by electric cars are not even charging. I think I'm one of like 2 or 3 people who are charging their electric cars next to electric car charger. In addition to that, we have tons of people, there's Rivians and Teslas and Bolts that are just parked in regular spots and they never charge. And granted, some of them probably charge at work, but a lot of them go out there and spend an hour, 2 hours a week charging somewhere else. And that is not a good experience for an electric car owner, and something that I think most regular common people and families are not willing to do, to take another 2 or 3 hours away from their families and go and charge. And obviously, it's just inconvenient for those of us who don't have the ability. Now, as I'm getting on the road, I will be one of those people. I'll definitely report back to you guys whether I like it or not, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer. Now, at the same times, we have not had too many laws around the country passed requiring apartment complexes to put up the electric car chargers, which is a shame. I think at most some counties pass laws where, okay, if you're building a new building next year, up to 20% of the parking spots need to be dedicated electric chargers. But that's not going to do in another few years. And what are we doing about the spots at all of the apartment complexes that are already up? There's not much of a solution here, and we need one. Now, I promised you, I told you that I will tell you about my favorite way to refuel your battery, which is just as fast as gassing a car, which is a battery swap. It's not very popular. It's not very popular with you. It's not very popular in the industry, and it's definitely not very popular with Tom, who will let you know why in a second. But NIO, as you're watching them right now, has kind of pioneered and built out a pretty decent battery swap network in China, and now launched it in Europe. We'll see how that goes over there. And then there's a company called Ample here in San Francisco, they've done it actually in a better way, where they don't swap out the whole battery. They just swap out one of the 6 modules, which I think is the way to go for sure. And of course, CATL, one of the biggest battery supply companies, has launched their own series of batteries that are swappable. And there's actually one model of electric cars in China that's already using that. So we'll see if that takes off. But that would be my choice because it is just very quick. But bottom line is this: when you're trying to implement a new technology into the masses, that technology needs to be better and hopefully cheaper, but definitely better than what people have right now. And we're almost there, but charging is definitely holding the entire thing back. So now I think it's a good time to bring in my friend and the host of the State of Charge YouTube channel, and really the best expert I know in this industry, Tom Moloughney. Tom, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, Alex, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. Well, let's start off by talking about long distance charging. Do you think we're finally at the point where long distance charging, long distance traveling in an electric car, as long as it was purchased in the last few years or so, is good enough to say, okay, we got it? You can long distance travel in America and Europe just fine.
So, I think the point where we're at right now, it's better than it's ever been. It continues to get better. I think for most road trips, at least, not all, but for most road trips, what we have today is adequate.
Yeah, and I think so. I'm looking forward to it with mine. Now, let's talk about home charging, right? Obviously, homeowners like you and I, we're good. And the problem, of course, is that most people rent, and a lot of people live in apartment complexes. Now, I remember me and you had a lot of disagreements over this. I think when my ex-girlfriend asked me, whether or not she should buy an electric car, and I knew she was going to live in an apartment complex. I said, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to probably just stick with a gas for now, because you will have to go and consistently charge at a fast charging network. Do you believe this is still a problem we need to solve?
Yeah, well, we still have inadequate infrastructure, particularly for those that live in apartments and multifamily dwellings that can't charge at home, Alex. It's a problem. It's not a problem that's insurmountable, but where we are today, it's still very inconvenient if you can't charge at home.
So what needs to change? Well, I mean, there's no laws that I've seen that are being passed on a larger scale, and really that really going to make a dent in this. How do we make the apartment complex managers and owners to add these, relatively expensive spots? But I still feel like it's something that you have to do sooner or later. And with the infrastructure bill, it should be a little bit easier on them financially. How do we make it happen?
I think it's pretty easy. You stop renting from them if they don't provide it, which is what's going to happen. The market's going to work this out, Alex. As more and more people get EVs, they're going to, tell their building manager or the owner, look, we're moving out because we have an EV and you don't provide charging here. And then when somebody is calling them to rent their apartment, they're going to ask them all about the apartment and say, oh, by the way, I could charge my car there, right? No, I can't. Oh, okay, forget it. I'm going to look somewhere else. And then the property managers are going to install charging. They're going to have to, or they're going to have empty units.
Wow, you are a real capitalist. The market will work itself out. David here has an interesting idea, and I kind of agree with it. Let's see if you do. He says, so we need some ability to book some chargers with a monetary penalty for not using the booked charge time, and suspended access for repeated no-shows. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I know ChargePoint has like in their app reserve charging. In not all the locations, they have the ability to do it, but the site owner then is the one that ultimately decides if they want to initiate that or not. I think that's a possibility coming up. I think that would be good for the networks because they could also see exactly what the utilization is and how many people get denied because that station is booked, and then that might help them add more stations at the sites that need more plugs. So yeah, I think we're going to get to that point where you'll be able to book. You're in the middle of a road trip and you book a station that's 100 miles away. You book it for 2 hours from now, and you roll in right in the right time and plug in, and that plug's reserved for you only.
What do you think about if you're charging within, I don't know, 5 miles of your address, right? Obviously, a local. should your rate be higher because you're essentially misusing the charging station?
No, because what if you live in an apartment and you need that charging station? You know, I mean, I understand what you're saying there. And, in some use cases, yeah, like if the person could charge somewhere else, but we can't penalize people that live in apartments and make them pay more. That wouldn't be fair.
All right, here's another interesting one about battery swap. Pete says battery swap stations appear to be one car at a time. One if there are two, three, four cars in line, might as well charge. Well, no, Pete, that's not how math works because the battery swap takes about 2 or 3 minutes nowadays, and it will improve even faster depending on how many sort of modules you want to replace. So I've the last time I was a Tesla supercharger, the line was about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And when I got stuck in line, that was another, the guy behind me waited for probably almost 30 minutes. No, if you have two, three, even four cars in line, that's still going to be under 10 minutes of waiting versus what I've just described. So that goes much faster. And of course, yes, right now there's one at a time, but the more cars they make, the more demand there is, then there will be two cars at a time. Like you can't assume that one technology is improving, but the competing one is not and just standing still. Tom, does that make sense?
Yeah, when I talked to Neo about that, they had said, I mean, their stations are kind of like they can drop them in place. They just need the interconnection from the utility. They said it was very easy for them to add another bay at the same location if the demand warranted it. But you still can have a situation, Alex, where Pete mentioned, where just like the superchargers, on usually there's never a backup, but on a holiday, a lot of people are traveling. So now there's 10 cars in the queue waiting to get their 3-minute swap. So you're both kind of right there. It definitely can happen, but the operators can also add additional bays if sites are continuously backed up.
And they're mobile too. Here's an interesting follow-up question from LY3T. Will battery swap cover you when your battery cannot hold a charge after years of use? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. That's a kind of another perk of a battery swap is because the batteries are maintained by the company, in this case, Neo or Ample, so they will always have a good battery. If the battery, is seeing some degradation or just getting old, that just goes right out of the circulation.
Yeah, you're correct, Alex. So there's no a problem with that. Like the comment said, you don't like. There's no your battery holding a charge. When you swap out and get a new battery, now that's your battery. And what happens is the manufacturers, in addition to charging the batteries, they'll be tested at these battery swap stations. And if the battery falls below a certain capacity, they'll just get taken out of circulation. So there'll be no such thing as having a battery that can't hold the charge if you're using battery swap.
Yeah, and to me, it's one of the perks. All right, let's go to another one from Adam. He asks thoughts on Airbnb of chargers, companies like EV Watch or C Charging in UK. Now we have one here called EV Match. As a matter of fact, I had their CEO on a while back, where essentially, yeah, if you have a charger that's external or you can run a cable, people come in and charge. To me, I'm not really sure how that would work in terms of if you're traveling long distance, that's really the only time when you would need it. And level 2 charging, and that's the maximum that people can offer at their houses and even businesses, is just not fast enough unless it's an emergency. Do you agree with that, Tom? Is there any type of an Airbnb way of sort of contributing to the infrastructure?
Yeah, there is actually, you can limit the time when your charger's available, and it will lock itself out during the times you say it's not available. So let's say, for instance, you work all day at an office. So you're not home from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, with your commute or whatever. You could make your home charger available during those 12 hours. And now somebody who lives down the block that lives in an apartment, they roll up to your house at 6 o'clock in the morning when you leave, and they plug in and they leave their car there all day, and they go walk home because they live a block away and they live in an apartment. And now they're essentially using your charger while they're at home working and while you're at work. So there is a business case for this, and it can work.
Yeah, interesting. I haven't thought about that. Martin says EVs with swappable batteries should be cheaper to buy than EVs including a fixed battery. Well, not only that, but even leasing a battery should be cheaper than paying that extra money for the fixed battery because, as I mentioned, you shouldn't swap the entire battery. You know, if you're just going to the grocery store and to work, you really need a very small part of your battery. So you're dragging all of this charged battery cells that you're not going to use most of the time, which actually decreases the range that the module that actually will be used, the module of battery cells that will be used, because it has to drag another bunch of whatever 60 kilowatt hour battery with it. So that should be cheaper. Tom, do you see any issues with the math here?
No, you're correct. The lease of the vehicle would be less, but then you've got to pay whatever it is to lease the batteries or to join the battery swap system. So it's I don't think long term. I think if you were to net it out over 5 years, you're not going to save any money because you still need use of a battery. I don't think the financial saving would be worth it, in my opinion. Yeah.
All right, Tom. Well, listen, once again, thanks for joining me. This is now your new home at E4 Electric. I know you've been in my Sunday videos for many years, but now I feel like this is much a more fun format for me and the viewers to actually have a good time. Thanks once again for doing this, and I will see you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, and I will no longer be here. Feel free to guess where I'm going to be, and I will tell you next Wednesday.
All right. Well, thanks for having me and take care, everybody. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, Tom. Yeah, guys, as I said, I will no longer going to be in California next Wednesday. No, I'm sorry. I lied. Next Wednesday is my last Wednesday here in California. I'm leaving at the end of the month. As a matter of fact, I'm heading out on a Halloween night. And like I said, let me know if you want to know what and why and so forth, why this is happening. So, all right, guys, I am looking forward to all of your comments because we always repost this as a shorter video the next day. Other than that, see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.